Hi guys, this is Ian. I'm sat in front of my piano today because today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the recent videos that I produced. Now, I had a few questions from various YouTube users regarding the differences between major and minor and my whole process and the kind of synthesizers that I use and the equipment that I use, etc. The first thing I will say is that I am a self-taught musician. I do not read music, so my methods might be a little bit unorthodox. So I'm going to use Mark Snow's X-Files theme as the example piece for this video. So the difference between major and minor, what is the difference between major and minor? Well, a major chord, like A major for example, to me sounds uplifting and happy. A minor sounds sad and somewhat depressing, you know, depending on what you do with it. Whether or not something sounds creepy is another thing altogether. Using the X-Files as an example, everybody will be familiar with the main hook, which is essentially this, which is based around an A minor chord. So, to me, the A minor is a sad chord, you know, as Nigel Tufnell in Spinal Tap would tell you. It's actually D minor that's the saddest chord, but A minor is pretty sad as well. So A minor, on its own, just sounds a little bit sad. But you add in the F, and then you create a little bit of tension, and suddenly what's sad becomes a little bit creepy, a little bit, it kind of adds a little bit of tension and makes you feel a little bit more uncomfortable. So in turning this to a major piece, I have several options on how to proceed with it. I can use the A major, which is the quickest and easiest change, which would give us something like this, which to me sounds a little bit science fiction, space age. So it's again, it's full of tension. It's not just a typical major chord. It's got that F note in again. So it's certainly major, but it's not exactly what I would call happy or uplifting. And I am looking for happy and uplifting here in converting to major key. So my next option would be an F chord. So I've got the A minor. So if I move up to the F here and put an F in the bass, that's an F major chord, which gives us which to me, it's in a major key, but it still contains the A minor, which is actually the F kind of major 7. Kind of creates a more wistful kind of sound to me. It's major, but again, it's still not happy and uplifting. It's still a bit wistful and wanting. Even though the melody still works with it, it's just not quite there. It kind of feels like it needs to resolve. And the X-Files theme consists of just the A minor. So there's just the one chord, so you don't want to create something that feels like it needs to resolve. So my solution to the whole problem is to change the A minor to a C major, which is of course everybody's first chord when they're introduced to the keyboard. Well, at least it was in my case. Excuse the bum note. You know, it's quite funny actually working with these chords. For the purposes of this video, I think I could quite easily come up with a song based around this theme that would move through at least 3 or 4 chords, including the kind of the space agey kind of chord, which is an interesting sound, perhaps something. Yeah, I'm inspired. If I come up with something, I will post a link on the screen right now. So that's my really kind of poor explanation of the difference between major and minor chords, and my thought process in turning the standard X-Files theme into something not only major but major happy. It's all nice, all good. Everything's worked out just fine for Mulder and Scully. Skinner's kept his job, everything's good. Even Cigarette Smoking Man has been forgiven. Everything's great in that version of the X-Files. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to the PC, and I'm going to open Cubase. I'm going to record the screen, and we'll have a look at the project in Cubase and the kind of synths that I've used, etc. Here we go. So here we are, guys, in Cubase 7.5. I have the X-Files project open in front of me about now. So what I've done is this was kind of like a final mix, so I've just messed about with it a bit and tried to restore it to its original form. So, of course, this is what the X-Files kind of sounds like in its original form. So it's something like that. The interesting thing was, the reason why I started, when I had the idea to convert some themes to a minor key, I did, to a major key, should I say, I started with the X-Files because as a long-time fan of the series, I was always familiar with the synthesizer that Mark Snow used for much of the score for, I don't know how many seasons, possibly all 9, I don't know. But he used a Korg wave station, and I was familiar with the Korg wave station because the band Genesis used it on the 1991 album We Can't Dance, and a friend of my brother's had one. So I was very familiar with the Korg wave station and its kind of unique sound. So when I was exposed to the X-Files in the early 90s, I immediately recognized it. And then, I don't know, perhaps 10 years ago, I managed to get my hands on the soft version of the Korg wave station, which is this. Oh, excuse the ping pong delay. Let's turn that off for a minute. So there's all these kind of RAM chips and what have you that have all the different sounds, and it's pretty much exactly the same as the original instrument. And there are a lot of sounds on here that are quite unique, basically. So when you hear them on an X-Files episode, you know exactly where they came from. So that's the main instrument I used in recreating this. So I have the wave station for the piano sound. It's not the best piano sound in the world, but it's uniquely the X-Files. Obviously the token whistle sound is of course a Korg wave station patch. The big kick, it's just I think it's just a low tom being hit with a ton of reverb added to it. And the rest of the stuff is they're all wave station patches, one or the other. So there's the wave station, a TR-808, which is being used through battery, I think, being processed through battery, and just that sample there, the low tom hit. And that's essentially the basics of this version of the X-Files. So in turning it from minor to major, this is how I work. I tend to record the piece of music that I want to work on as it stands in its original form, which of course is something like that. And then what I'll do is it's very easy. I'll just go in and manipulate the notes. So to turn this to the major key that I discussed in the first part of the video, I'll just grab the notes that I know that need to move. So that is currently an A, and I know that I wanted to change it to a C major, so I'm going to move the A to the G. Do the same with this one and that one. And then we have something like that, and that sounds pretty awful because we of course need to change the chord as well, which that would be in here. So it's starting to sound a little bit more like, and then of course the bass note needs to change, which I'll use one I prepared earlier, and then we have. And then this synth here kind of echoes what the piano's doing, which is... So that, of course, needs to change. Something like that. So everything else pretty much stays the same. Move around the melody, which is really easy because the only thing that changes as far as the melody goes is that. Now that piano isn't accurate because I haven't spent any time doing it here, I'm just messing about, but here's one I prepared earlier. So it's starting to sound like the piece that you may or may not have already heard on my channel. So we take off all these bits and I'll talk you through it. So we have the bass note. So let's mute everything off. Da 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 da, and start with the pieces. So firstly we want the bass note as the underbelly, which eventually gets louder towards the end of the track, and we want the big loud, which occurs several times through the track. And then we want the whistle. We want the percussion. And we want the introductory synths. Paired off with the ones that eventually build towards the end of the track. And of course, what would the X-Files be without the piano? Now this synth part here I've messed with and I'm not entirely sure what it's doing, so I'm just gonna... I think that's gonna be right now. And that's it. I've just moved a few notes around. It literally, I'd say, how long does it take to record these videos? So if I'm doing 5 themes, movie themes, whatever, I'd say the process takes around 2 hours to learn, put the basics down, then move the notes around, and then just add a little bit of gloss. About 2 hours for a video. So that's about, you know, give or take, whether or not it has vocals. The Omen theme that I recorded recently, it took a little bit longer because there were vocals, and vocals aren't synths, you know, we sometimes our voices don't work. So yeah, I've been a Cubase user for years, and with regards to the setup and the equipment that I use, yes, I now use soft VST instruments, but I have always used in the past real synths. And always had access to things like Korg keyboards, specifically Trinity's, the Triton, I think that was an older one that I had access to, of course the Wave Station, and some really old Korg synths. I had a 1970s analog Korg synthesizer for years and years and years. I don't know what happened to it. And then, of course, as times progressed and Cubase became available to me, I progressed to soft synthesizers, much easier to deal with. So, anyway, so that was a very rough look at how I put these things together. So, thanks for listening to me drone on today, guys. I might get to work on that X-Files song I was talking about earlier. I'm really intrigued. Let's see what happens with that. And let's see what happens in the future. Thanks to everybody who's subscribed to my channel recently. I really appreciate it. And I hope to speak to you again soon. Till then, goodbye.